Hey, Judy.
Hey Dennis, how are you today?
Okay. I think. I don't know. How about you?
Doing well, thanks. Should we reschedule for Thursday?
Yeah, I sent you another link. So
Okay.
hopefully you'll find, a good one and we'll work it out. I started on a 3:30 call thinking it would be over by 4:30 and
Mhm.
it wasn't over till 5:30. So I apologize.
Oh my goodness, bless your heart. Well, we'll reschedule. That's a long meeting.
Unexpected too, when you plan for it, it's one thing, but it worked out. It was pretty cool. I mean, it was interesting. So, you
Well,
know,
your picture in the background, are those your horses?
they are. Yep, that's Spooky and Emmy.
Spooky and Emmy. Oh, how
Yeah,
wonderful.
they're brothers and sisters that we got from a rescue farm down in Georgia, and they're Tennessee Walkers, and they live a pretty good life, I must say.
Oh, how wonderful. And rescues.
Yeah, they're
I
brother
had
and
a friend.
sister. They had been pretty rough shape. They had never been ridden in 9 years, 9 or 10 years. One's nine, the other was 10, and my wife's a pretty good horse person, so they've they're just wonderful horses. They're really great. So, hey, Andy.
Dennis, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good, good. Judy, good to meet you.
Good to meet you too,
Yeah.
Andy. Thank you.
Do you have snow on the ground up there, Andy?
We've had a couple of flurries that are pretending to snow over the last couple of weeks, but nothing has stuck yet.
Oh,
In
good.
fact, it's funny because I'm flying to a board meeting in Montana next week and going through
Oh,
Denver, which is usually a really bad idea in December. Turns out it's going to be mid 60s in Denver next week.
incredible.
Wow.
So it's a bit varied.
Yeah. What town are you near in Montana? What's the big airport you go into?
Directly into Billings for the
Billings. Okay. Yeah.
the December board meeting for YBET. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
I
all.
my brother-in-law lives not too far outside of Butte,
Oh
uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
about 20 miles east, and so I he keeps me up with all things Montana.
In Billings, the talk earlier this year was how the housing market had just rocketed up, and how there were literally people from all 50 states moving to Montana, the vast majority from California,
Yeah.
in terms of the biggest representation, and property values are rocketing up. And for the company standpoint, they're talking about, my goodness, do we need to give housing assistance to new hires to be able to attract them to the red hot Billings housing market? Reminds me of my old days at Clorox, where we had to literally give new hires, right out of school, $100,000 grant. Otherwise, they had no hope of buying a house.
Wow. Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
My goodness.
Well, my my brother-in-law actually lived for almost 20 years in a teepee, and
Wow.
he tans buffalo hides. He worked for the Smithsonian for a lot of years. He ran the Lewis and Clark Museum, which is in I think in Missoula, or no, it might be in
Wow.
Great Falls. And so he has a master's degree in Indian ethnology, and so he's why he is not a reality television show star, I will never know, because his life is simply, it's just, I can't even really describe it. I mean, he spends this time, like one of his projects right now is he's doing replica point blankets from the 1820s that were used by the Indians, and
My
it has a
goodness.
very distinctive kind of weave and pattern and colors, and he's been able to figure out how to get it done. So they're selling for, I think, $1,000 a blanket, and they've sold
Wow.
I think 14 of them in their first month, all over the world. A lot of museums buy them. It's just that it's a different kind of life. I'll tell you that. So
Mhm. Dennis, you've got fascinating family.
I think all the nuts attract each other. It's kind of what it is.
I don't know
But
about that.
he's an incredible guy. He came east for his parents, his dad's funeral. Um, and he doesn't normally come east very often, but he's an Eagle Scout. He has an incredible track record and background, academics, um, and so I looked over at him, and he was surrounded at the wake by all the women that were there were basically surrounding him and listening to his tales of Montana. And 4 of them were the hospice nurses that had taken care of Elizabeth's dad. And they're all married, and 2 are black, 2 are white. One of them is really country. And one of them came up to me after, while that was going on, and looked over at me and said, "We're all going to Montana to visit Billy." I don't think they ever did or will, but that's how he is. He's just he said, if you want to have a good cocktail party, invite an Indian ethnologist, because they will be the hit of the party, apparently. So
I will keep that in mind.
yeah, really, it's just
I have to go find one now.
yeah, I got his address if you want it. But now he's graduated. He lives in a shipping container. And he and another guy who also makes Indian stuff. He makes these beaded items. I don't know how to describe it, but they each have a shipping container that they have turned into a house. And the one guy, who is a retired doctor from California, has put in like $30,000 or $40,000 into his container. He has Anderson windows, and it's just blowout.
When you
And
think
the
about
people,
it, it's prefab, it's robust, it's leak proof.
Yeah. Well, they're at like 8,000 feet. They're in a pretty rough environment where their land is, so it's perfect, really, for where they are. And they're just individual. They each live there. They're huge, actually, inside. So this guy put in Anderson windows and good carpet, all this kind of stuff. So he's the talk of the little town, that he went into the hardware store and ordered all this stuff to be delivered to his container, and he installed everything himself. So
wow,
it's kind of crazy. So anyway, I don't know why I'm going on and on. I just I marvel. I just go, I don't know if I could live like that. I guess if you have to, but he chose to, so it's pretty remarkable to me.
That is remarkable. Boy, all that just because of Montana.
Yeah, sorry. Well, listen, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I think folks will be joining us as we go. So everybody meet Andy Gilicinski, and Andy is a longtime friend of our program, even though our program is not a long time. It's only a short time. Andy's been with us since the beginning, and he's I call him the Michael Jordan of consumer product goods, because he just knows everything about it. He's got tremendous experience, tremendous insights to offer all of you. So I'm gonna hand it over to Andy, and hopefully the technology will work. So Andy, take it away.
Thank you so much. And Dennis, as I get ready to fire up slides, hopefully you all don't mind. I have a couple of slides to help support the discussion. I'd love to just go around very briefly and get a sense for who everybody is. If you don't mind just introducing yourself super quick, and if you've got a company or a business that you either have or are thinking about, maybe just mention it, and that'd be awesome.
Sure. We'll start with Judy. She's first on my list here.
Hello, Andy. I'm starting, and I'm in the very beginning phases. It's a 2-part company that I'm doing. I'm making natural products, but I also want to support it with a YouTube channel that teaches people how to live greener, using the drawdown techniques. I don't know if you're familiar with the drawdown.
No.
Also to teach children about nature and things of that sort. So I want to make non-petroleum jelly. I also make a plantain tea tree salve that takes the itch and the sting and swelling out of bug bites and whatnot. So natural products, but also an educational component to it.
That sounds wonderful. Pleased to meet you, Judy.
Yeah. Grant, why don't you go next? Grant's the number one intern, but he's an entrepreneur also.
Yeah. Hey, Andy. My name's Grant Smith. I'm the intern, but I'm working on my own little small business for hospital communication. So I kind of pick up things here and there when when I'm watching over the class. So it's good to see you again.
Mhm. Good to see you.
Kime?
Hey, good afternoon, Andy. Good to see you again.
Yes.
Opal's Candies is nut-filled snacks that hopefully people can gravitate to or have an emotional contact with. So,
Fantastic.
Well, he's cutting himself short there, Andy. He also, it's his grandmother's recipe, and he has resuscitated some historical recipes. I say hysterical, but historical recipes that are really unbelievably delicious. And he's been doing really well with stuff that you haven't seen since you were a little kid.
Fantastic. Perfect time of year to sell it too.
Yeah. Jennifer Hyde?
Hi, guys. Hi, Andy.
Hi.
Thanks for coming today. My name's Jen. I am an artist on the Outer Banks in North Carolina, and I mainly focused in hand embroidered and hand stitched wearable art and accessories.
Sounds fantastic. My goodness.
Thank
Really
you.
cool. Hey, Allison?
Hi, I'm in I'm in my car. I'm technology in the car. It just doesn't seem to suit me. I'm Allison Lassiter, and I have a Berry Best Jams, which is a freezer jam, but I do a 30% less sugar. So
Wow.
it's sort of unique in itself, and all of the fruit comes from within the county where I prepare it in Johnston County.
Love it. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, she's also lives on a cattle farm and
Yeah.
knows about all that good stuff.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we were sorting calves on. I thought about you. We were sorting calves off for a sale. Let's see, Saturday, and they broke out Saturday
Oh
night.
no.
We were in trouble when the mama cows got real quiet at about 2:00 in the morning. So
Oh,
my
boy.
husband got me up and said, "Hey, they're all out." So we had to get them back up again.
Oh gosh. That's
It's kind of like
It
having
reminds me
toddlers
of-
when they go quiet.
yeah,
You know, it's not
exactly.
good. No, it's not.
Amanda?
I missed the initials. I guess, are we just introducing ourselves and what we do?
Yes.
Real
Okay.
quick. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. I am a veterinarian and have been practicing for 20 plus years. My newest venture has been, for the last 3 years, has been teaching young kids, mostly elementary and middle school kids, about animal health related careers. I sort of do, we call it Kids Vet Club and Junior Vet Academy. And they take classes. I do summer camps, and it's all STEM-based learning, and give these kids mentoring that hopefully will, assist them in following their dreams. I also have a big focus on diversity and inclusion because veterinary medicine, while it is now not white male, is generally white, and those populations, all they need is somebody to tell them they can do it, and that's what I do.
All right.
Love it.
Deanna?
Hey, I'm Deanna Prevet, and me and my husband have a you pick strawberry patch and pumpkin patch, and we started in April of last year, and so we've already planted for this year, and yeah, so we're kind of new. I mean, I grew up on a chicken farm and a cow farm, so I'm not new to farming, but new to the strawberries and pumpkins, so definitely a lot to learn.
Okay.
Fantastic.
So
Jamaris?
Hey, my name is Jamaris Payton. My background, I have over 14 years of manufacturing operations. First year MBA student at ECU. My venture is Carolina Chicken and Waffles, which is a family owned and operated mobile food and beverage unit, AKA food truck. We started in 2019, family owned and operated, and based out of Greenville, North Carolina, but we're looking to expand throughout Eastern North Carolina. Mainly our next locations, we're looking to expand it to Rocky Mount and into Washington area. And so yeah, that's us. And thanks for being here.
Fantastic. Oh, my pleasure. Thank you all very much for your just sharing a little bit about your background. I'm just popping up a slide set. Do you all see
Yeah.
a PowerPoint slide?
Yep.
Awesome. So I'll reciprocate. I'm Andy, of course. Have grown up as a chemist, started life at the bench, working at a gas and chemical company. Then in 2000, jumped into the wonderful world of consumer packaged goods, starting at Gillette. I thought I'd be there for life, but then they got bought out by Procter & Gamble. So went to Clorox, then got lured to come back to Wisconsin, where I got my degree, to Georgia Pacific up in Appleton, and then SC Johnson in Racine. Have launched a whole bunch of products, over 500 million in year one incremental sales. Just by accident, I kind of bumbled into the M&A game. I was at Clorox. They knew I came from Gillette, and this little company that they never heard of called Burt's Bees was available for an acquisition auction. And so they asked me to lead the diligence on that. And I stayed with that company, based, of course, in Raleigh-Durham, for another 3 years after that with the integration, and learned a whole lot about how you can take an itty bitty small company and get bought by a big monstrous company and help make sure that the value gets maintained, that it doesn't get swallowed up and kind of stamped out in terms of its entrepreneurial spirit. In the fall of 2019, I started my own entrepreneurial firm. Two of my kids graduated from college. And we got a big bump in home income when they were off the payroll. So I thought, my goodness, I've always wanted to do something like this. And I figured I'm one of only probably 10 humans in the country that have a PhD in science and have done innovation in consumer goods and have done M&A. It gives me a very unique perspective on the world. So I'm loving doing that and staying involved with consumer goods. And I'm thrilled to be with here today. Dennis asked me to speak about the power of brands in consumer goods and the role of new brands and startups. And so the topics I'd love to cover: the power and the value of branding, some comments around the metrics around powerful branding and what constitutes a powerful brand, and the role of new brands in the consumer packaged goods industry. Where's there room for new brands in a world where there are so many well-established brands out there? How can we hope as entrepreneurs to make a difference? And I have some comments around that, and then some discussion around it. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yeah, it's great.
Awesome. Well, I'll start with the whole question around the power of branding. So you want to be a consumer brand of some kind. You've got services, whether it's coaching to get kids into veterinary health, or whether you got products like wearable art. One thing you can do to make your business more powerful is to create a brand. And ultimately, how valuable can that be? And there are various ways of calculating the value of brands. It's kind of like, I guess, question for y'all: are y'all Carolina Panthers fans on the football side? Is that no? Amanda's saying no. Do you follow other sports, Amanda?
Carolina Hurricanes.
All right, let's take Carolina Hurricanes. So often you might read in the sports pages about people that come up with power rankings. The world is obsessed with, okay, who's number one, who's going to make playoffs, what the most powerful teams. And they typically come up with their own sort of informal algorithm. How strong is the offense? How strong is the defense? Have special teams, or, how good are they at the start of the season? How does that move to the end of the season? Well, for brands, there is something very similar. And I've called up here from the 2001 Forbes list of the most valuable brands in the world. This chart represents, has an incredibly interesting set of columns in it. The middle, a little bit to the left of the middle of the page, is brand value. It's this amalgamation. It's kind of like power rankings for a sports team of how important is the brand to retailers? How much shelf space can you get? How much premium pricing can you get? How much does the brand occupy in terms of consumer attention? Things like, so it's a whole bunch of things together. And a little bit to the right of the center is the column called brand revenue. That's just the sales. And this is ranked for all the brands in various categories, whether it's technology, as you can see on the right, for industry, or consumer goods, beverages, things like that. But what I will ask you all to think about and jump in with your thoughts is, which of these brands do you think is the most powerful brand, the power of the brand? You've got a rough estimate of the brand value. You've got very quantifiable brand sales under the brand revenue column. What do you think is the most powerful brand on this page?
I would lean more towards either Amazon or Coca-Cola.
Very good. Why do you say those two?
Coca-Cola's got staying power. They have been around for such a long time. They haven't continuously rebranded themselves. Their message is solid and continuous, and Amazon just seems to be unstoppable.
Excellent thinking, Judy. I love it. And anybody else have thoughts on that?
I would jump in and say Coke as well. Just like the strong brand recognition, even down. I mean, it's in food and beverage. I think that's something that people are always going to deal with. But in addition to it, Coke just has that emotional attachment, especially when you start thinking about this, the time of the year where they do like the polar bears drinking a Coke. It's just like, So I think Coke is probably one of the ones with the strongest brands.
Outstanding thinking, James. Thank you for sharing that. Any final thoughts? And I'll jump in with a comment.
I just have one comment. I just read the headline. I didn't read the article, but apparently Generation Z did not shop at Amazon on Cyber Monday or Black Friday. Dramatically lower than any other age group for sales on Amazon.
My goodness. I wonder if they're starting to migrate to Walmart or Best Buy or some of the more bespoke places, Grove Collaborative or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Very interesting. So here, I'd like to, as we think about the power of branding, I'd like to just call your attention to the difference between brand revenue and the brand value. For Apple, it's massive, it's enormous, we all love it to varying degrees, but brand revenue, brand value, similar numbers. For Google, you'll notice that the brand revenue of 145 billion is actually, the value is even higher than that. It's over 200 billion. So a real pop there. And what that suggests is that the Google name, when something is labeled with Google, it actually becomes even more valuable than just the sheer sales that they've got. Microsoft, similar, 125 billion in revenue. They've got a pop for the brand value. Check out Amazon, 260 billion in revenue. They are actually the top revenue. They just edge out Apple in this chart, but their brand value is half of that. What that suggests is if something is branded Amazon, it doesn't seem as valuable to us. We don't give it as much credit. And part of it, Amazon did it to themselves with the Amazon Basics. What do we think of when we think of Amazon Basics? That's the low-end version of a particular product. That's not the premium offering within a category. They also have a lot of third-party sellers that have, to varying degrees, sullied the reputation of Amazon a little bit. Some of the third-party sellers don't do as good of a job in support, taking returns, things like that. So it's all kind of hurt the Amazon brand value. Facebook, almost 50 billion in sales, 70 billion in brand value. Check out Coca-Cola. James and Judy both called out Coke. 25 billion in sales, almost triple that in brand value. That's powerful. That suggests that when Coke labels a bottle with their name on it, it's going to have more power in pricing. It's going to have a higher rate of conversion of sales. It's probably going to get more shelf space on the store. Just lots of good things happen. And to Jamers's point, it's been around a long time. And Judy mentions too, it just has staying power. It's really been something that consumers have come to know generation after generation. Just as an interesting follow-up, as we go from for the rest of the top 10, Disney has a very strong pop with branding, as you would expect. You know, you put their name on something, people feel much better about it. Check out Samsung. 200 billion in sales, even higher than Apple and Amazon. 1/4 of the brand value versus their sales. People think of Samsung as a commodity. They make great stuff, but their stuff isn't that different than other people's stuff. Conversely, look at Louis Vuitton, number 9, 15 billion in sales, more than triple that in brand value. When they put their label on I'm assuming that it's on a purse or a wallet or a piece of clothing or something like that, boy, is it valuable. Jen, you'd probably love to have the Louis Vuitton effect on your things that you're selling. and at the bottom of the list, rounding out the top 10, McDonald's, 100 billion in sales, again, less than half of that in brand value. People think, oh, it's commodity. It's kind of the low end version of food. You know, if they put their label on something, it's not going to command the pricing. And all this is just, it's a fascinating sort of exercise to look at it. But it all brings home the fact that if you can build a good brand around your offering, whether you're selling jams or strawberries and pumpkins, it's going to make it more powerful. You're going to have more pricing power. People will seek you out, and it just does wonderful things for your business. And so branding is important, and starting your own company, thinking about building your brand is actually a useful thing. It's often not the first thing you think of as an entrepreneur. You're thinking, oh, I gotta figure out my product. I gotta find customers. Absolutely correct. But thinking about how you communicate your offering through a brand is actually something that it's worth doing right out the get-go. Coca-Cola, to the point we've discussed, been around for a long time, started in 1886. And by 1900, up at the top, you can see how the logo has evolved over the years. By 1900, you kind of had the basic logo that we know today. And by 1905, it's done. And for the next 120 years, they just keep building on consistency around what they've already got. Their look and feel of their product. Look at the lower left around their bottle. Again, by 1900, they kind of had the same look of the bottle they have today. And that's been trademarked. And that is something that they protect and they celebrate. And when you see that shape, you don't even have to see the logo on it. You know that that's a bottle of Coca-Cola. And that's yet another example of a company that's really paid attention and done it right in terms of not just working on their brand, but working on how recognizable their brand from their logo to the shape of their product itself is to consumers. And they've played with that over the years. They've modified it. To Jamers's point, they put the polar bears on it in Christmas time, but you know what? It's still the same basic offering, and we all recognize it. And that's really important. That every once in a while you run across brands that try to keep reinventing themselves. And you know what? That's fine. But the worst thing you can do, especially at big companies that have a brand, a new marketing VP comes, they want to make their name, let's rebrand. And that can be cool if you stick with it. But the most important thing is to be consistent, because if you end up standing for a range of things over time, you end up standing for nothing. And consumers get confused, and you're the people that want to buy your stuff aren't sure they really understand you as a brand. And so that consistency is really important. A couple of examples, startup brands. It's great to have a 100-plus-year-old company, but what can we do today? There are some wonderful and hugely inspiring stories about relatively new brands that have come about. Back in 1989, a woman named Annie there really wasn't any. Thought, you know what? There's room in the world. Yeah, everyone sees Kraft mac and cheese, but it kind of looks neon. It feels artificial. I want to bring something that feels like farm freshness to the ancient category of mac and cheese. I'll bet the ancient Egyptians used to eat mac and cheese. It's been around forever. Is there room for that? And you know what? It turns out there was. Annie went around literally out of the back of her car and was selling her farm fresh, made with goodness, fresh ingredients, mac and cheese around New England, starting at local mom and pop shops and the Whole Foods kind of stores around there, and started becoming very successful. In the 90s and 2000s, raising money, growing like crazy, went public in 2012. And then in 2014, was acquired and became part of General Mills. And today, if you look at the mac and cheese section of your local store, I challenge you to do it. If you're out shopping the next day or two, take a look at the mac and cheese aisle. You will actually see that Annie's has more shelf space, more geography than Kraft mac and cheese, which is just amazing given that it's only been a few decades. But this what you think of as a staid, ancient category has room for innovation. And she had room for the right proposition, which was a combination of a brand that tried to, really reflect the proposition. Annie's homegrown. It's right there in the name, communicating it, a brand look, a brand promise that was very consistent and very, very successful. Down here at the bottom, I've got two different examples of startups that are playing again in very traditional categories. When I was at Gillette in 2000, the company had 80% dollar share in the United States market. It was printing money. They actually had to use Brinks trucks to take blades out of the South Boston manufacturing facility and take them into distribution throughout the United States because it was so valuable. It actually would be as profitable as robbing a Brinks truck that just came out of a bank. The things were small, compact, and selling for big bucks. Well, Harry's came out of nowhere in 2013 and said, you know what? There's a place for kind of a lower cost, more friendly brand that isn't trying to put 20 blades on the razor head. And they started with their own, they ended up buying used machines to be able to make their blade and razor cartridges. And they, within 6 years, they were offered $1.4 billion by Energizer. And part of their shtick was finding a way to do it direct to consumer over the internet. Very different selling model than Gillette. I say that Energizer offered $1.4 billion. The deal ended up being blocked by the Federal Trade Commission. So they didn't end up becoming part of the Energizer empire, but it was amazing because their valuation basically suggested that Energizer was betting the entire company on the acquisition of this new brand. But again, it just shows that there's room, even in very established categories, for an entrepreneur that has a new idea, a different way of doing things to be able to be successful. Truman's started in February of 2019. And I remember this one distinctly. This one's personal for me because I laughed at them. They were using this cartridge system called Just Add Water system, JAWS, offered by a company called Canberra. You can see in the bottom right, these different cartridges for glass cleaner, kitchen cleaner. What you do is you have a bottle that you insert the cartridge in, you fill the bottle with water, and as that water is pulled up through the dip tube, it goes through the cartridge, mixes with just enough of the ingredients to create sort of right there in the spray head, glass cleaner, kitchen cleaner, whatever it is. And it allows you to not need lots of different spray bottles. You just buy the cartridges. So, it allows for less plastic use, reuse of that bottle. So it's an environmental play. And I looked at that in 2006 when I was at Clorox and tested it with consumers, and they said, nah, it's too complicated. We're not interested. So I passed on it. Truman's, within a couple of months, was able to get their proposition into Target, partly because by 2019, people were concerned about plastic. single-use plastic disposal, the environmental issues that arose, and Target decided to get behind it. And by September of 2019, Henkel invested $5 million in the company. So that's when I turned down personally, thought that there was not going to be room for it. And yet Truman's was able to read the mood of the consumer, read the moment, read the opportunity, and take 15-year-old technology and be able to create a viable business out of it. So that just shows you how smart I was in missing out on that. And it also speaks to sometimes the timing's got to be right. And big companies aren't always so great at reading the moment. I mean, that technology was available. Clorox knew it, Henkel knew it, everybody knew it. But it took a pair of entrepreneurs in Louisville, Kentucky that started Truman's in February 2019 to read the moment, to figure out, hey, it doesn't take new technology. It just takes creating the right proposition at the right time for the right people that want it, and putting a brand around it that communicates what that proposition is. And you can make a great company very successful around it. So
Andy,
pause there.
I just want to just one quick point jumping in. Some of our companies compete in what you would consider kind of a similar setup. And say it's a farmer's market, and they're providing products that other farmers are also providing. So I think what you're saying here is with the proper approach and branding, you can stand out even though it is something that is relatively common. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And I think, Allison, was it you that's doing the jams with fruit that comes from your county? Is that right?
Yes, that is what she does. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're probably competing with a whole bunch of other people that are making jams, tiny startups, people that are just doing it for a hobby, all the way to more medium-sized businesses. But you've got a specific thing, it comes from this county. These are the people. You could put the pictures of the farmers from your county up, and say, this is where your jams came from, and you can make them special, even though tons of people are selling the same thing at farmers markets, maybe right next to you on every Saturday. But it's the story that you create. It's the promise that you make. It's just thinking a little bit differently about something that lots of other people are providing that makes all the difference. So I love that comment, Dennis. Thank you. And just to prove to you that it isn't just fancy kind of product categories that can have new companies come in. Let me share with you one that comes from from about as humble a category as there is. We all know about toilet tissue. It's not the fanciest product in the world. Well, wet wipes or wet toilet tissue is a product within that category. And you know what? You might reasonably think, what the heck is there new under the sun there? Well, in October of 2015, a founder of a company called Dude Wipes decided that there was room in the world for something aimed specifically at men. Men might not feel good about buying Charmin wet wipes because if you've seen Charmin's ads from Procter & Gamble, they tend to be with these bears, and it tends to be focused on a mother with babies or kids, little baby bears type of thing. And if you're a rough and tough guy, that might not speak to you. So he decided, you know what? I'm going to go unabashedly for a male-focused product, fragrance-free, because real men don't need fragrance. And Dude Wipes, it's tough, it's plant-based source, it's flushable, and it's made for you. And it looks like something that a man would buy and put in their bathroom. Well, within a year of their getting funding from Shark Tank, they got distribution in Target. Today, they're in over 12,000 stores. By the way, Walmart only has 3,500 stores in the United States. So they're in a whole bunch of places. They were number 2 toilet product at Walmart. Sales now are over $100 million. And I just shared this. This came out, I think, 3 months ago. The founder, Chief Executive Sean Riley, was celebrating the fact that they now have beat Charmin to be the number 1 wet bath tissue in Walmart in the United States in their most recent thing. And you know what? I love some of the comments. He did a little bit of trash talking in his LinkedIn post, and I won't read the whole thing, but everyone said we didn't have the capital, resources, or experience to ever make this happen. Blah blah blah. I'll bet on passion, hunger, and authenticity every day of the week. Just if you're early in your journey, keep betting on yourself, pushing forward. And I love the last comment. The giants are asleep at the wheel. He said his basic thing is, these big companies, they don't have their finger on the pulse on what's going on. It's people like us, the entrepreneurs that are reading the market, are hearing and talking with consumers and people that buy our products or services every day. We're hearing them. And sometimes the big companies miss these things. And that's what gives you opportunity to do something really cool and create a great business. And Dennis, did you guys already take a look at the Simon Sinek,
Yes.
The Power of Why?
Yeah,
Awesome.
we started the session with that.
That's awesome. And I just love how he talks about it. Lots of companies and lots of entrepreneurs focus on the what. What do we do? How do we, let's make the product. Some of them evolve to talk about the how. How do we do it? Does that distinguish us? But at the end, the heart and soul of a brand and the thing that can create the deepest emotional connection between you and your awesome product or service and someone that wants it and needs it is why you're doing it. And, Amanda, when you talked about, I'm coaching people in veterinary careers to helping kids get interested in this from a science and education standpoint. But you know what? I'm also trying to bring people into this game, into this career that historically haven't done it, haven't realized that somebody could say, you can do it. And you know what? You've got such a powerful why around why you're doing what you're doing. Building that in, finding ways to communicate that and to help excite people with what you're doing. I think has just all the markings of a capability of just making really an exciting brand around what you do and getting people excited about your product. And I think every one of you has elements around what you're doing. Judy, you talked about natural products. Boy, I'll bet you've got a whole lot of why that you could talk about behind what you're trying to do. And I think each one of you has the potential for that. Grant, with your work with hospital communications, my goodness, is there room for a why there? That is just begging for it. Keim, bringing out historical recipes and ways of building your kinds of nut-filled snacks, especially if you're going back to the heritage of earlier, more innocent times. There's so much room there. Allison, we talked about 30% less sugar, the fruit from the county. You've got a couple of ways that you could talk about your why. You might have a tough decision. You have to decide which why is the most core around what you do. Because a classic thing about marketing is you don't want to give people too many things. Classic marketing education is single-minded message. You don't want to say, and less filling, and tastes great, and it's cheaper, and it's and this and that. If you stand for too many things, you stand for nothing. And so really thinking about, when you're blessed, like Allison is, with a couple of different ways you could position yourself, really making sure you're clear on what the core is. Deanna, with your strawberry and pumpkin offerings, same thing. What differentiates you? What's the why around what you do? Amanda, we've already talked about yours. Jamarus, with your Carolina chicken and waffles, what's the why? Is it convenience? Is it the authenticity of that Carolina taste that everyone knows and loves that's from there? What is it about the why you do what you do? Every minute you spend on that is going to be time well spent. So let's transition to the metrics around a powerful brand. We've talked a little bit about brand value at the beginning. In my experience, it feels like it's kind of a soft thing, but it's so important to be clear, not just on the why you do what you do, but to articulate it. Talk of the mission, the belief, the convictions, the clarity of purpose around why you do what you do and how that's reflected in your brand. In terms of measurement, unaided awareness is a very typical way of doing it. Whether we're doing it for an acquisition candidate or whether we're just trying to measure, hey, how strong is our brand? Whether we're selling air freshener for Glade or sunscreen for Sunbum. What's the unaided awareness? If you ask people, hey, what are good sunscreens you might have experienced or you think about when you think about sunscreen? If they say Sunbum, woohoo, that's really good. If they don't, if they just say copper tone, then you haven't done a good job of really getting that awareness. And social media engagement is a very quantifiable thing right now that we're all posting things all the time, looking at followers, looking at likes, impressions, or media. These are all ways you can quantify. One thing that as we looked at Sunbum as an acquisition, that we were really impressed by was how much people would reshare things that Sunbum put out on social media. People are very jealous with their reputation with their friends, and so they're not going to share schlock stuff. They're going to share things about brands they care about and that they're proud of, and that they're really excited to talk about with their friends. And so that is another great way to do it. I'd like to share with you right now some mission and belief statements that I've found are especially inspiring. Spending the time on this and getting it right, again, it seems like kind of a squishy thing to do, but let me share with you a couple of things that really evoke brands. So for the upper section, the mission for Harley-Davidson is to fulfill dreams of personal all-American freedom. That's what they are all about. That's what they're trying to do. Coca-Cola, their mission is to refresh the world and inspire moments of optimism and happiness. That's what they're here to do. And you know what? Your brands, your offerings, you're here to do some similarly inspiring things. The key is to bring them out and to help the people you want to sell to learn about it and be inspired by it as well. And one thing I also think is kind of cool is the beliefs that a company has. I've got 4 belief statements at the bottom that I think really help also bring out another dimension of brands. Nike's kind of hits you between the eyes. We believe that if you have a body, you're an athlete. How's that for a cool belief? How's that for making someone think, they think I'm an athlete? I don't know about all of you, but I don't usually think of myself as an athlete. Just saying, I'm blessed
I'm a
with
good
various
fan.
attributes. Yeah. I'm blessed with some great attributes, but athleticism ain't one of them. And yet Nike believes that I am an athlete. How inspirational is that? How does that make you think, I hadn't thought about buying athletic stuff, but maybe I should. They think I'm an athlete. Airbnb, are they competing with hotels? No. Their belief is that travel is better when you experience as an insider. They're not just giving you a place to sleep. They're trying to help you experience a cool city, a cool location in a different way. That is completely transformative in terms of what their brand is trying to be and aspire to, and how they're trying to engage with you and represent themselves to you. So I just want to pause for a moment. Hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at a couple of these things. I'd love your feedback and reactions on these, whether it's positive or whether it's not so positive, and what you think might be valuable to you around building your own brand and your own proposition with these kinds of this kind of thinking.
Don't be bashful.
So I have a sort of a technical question.
Sure, Amanda.
The interchangeability, or when do you use your belief statement versus your your mission statement?
That's a great question, Amanda. It's a little bit parsing. So, some of it I think gets a little bit theoretical, but I think the core is the belief is something that sort of helps inform everything you do as a brand. It doesn't always translate directly into how you communicate it, but it's sort of the underlying sort of belief set that you have as a brand. And I think in that way, it actually is very powerful because it sort of gives you an identity, that really gives the brand personality, that isn't always the communicated one. The mission tends to get more into how do you communicate that. So for Coca-Cola to refresh the world, inspire moments of optimism and happiness, you know what? You could actually see them using that in how they communicate through advertising, through social media, things like that. But it's more direct on how the brand shows. The belief statement is kind of deeper than that in a way. It's more of the brand's soul in a sense. Is that helpful?
Yes. And I guess I could look up, all of these statements are around products that people have to sell. Do you have any advice into like creating one that is more sort of ethereal? Like, it's not about an electric car or a cup of coffee.
Well, Airbnb comes close to that because that's a bit of a service. We're giving you a bed to sleep on, but it's a little bit more into that service side. I will dig around a little bit, Amanda, because there are some great examples of that from the service side. But I will see if I can serve up a few and maybe send them to you, Dennis. If it's okay, I'll send that, or feel free to share my contact info, and I'll just send it to you direct. But yeah, as I think about from a belief standpoint for you, we believe that that everybody deserves to have veterinary care from people that look like them. That's probably a terrible one to actually use, but sort of in that direction, or that every child can fulfill their dream of working with animals. Or something like that. That gets at the core of some of what drives you to offer your services and your product or your service to people. Yeah. And yet your mission statement might be more specific. Might be to bring more of rural North Carolinians to the veterinary category. Again, that's not very inspiring as it is, but that could be a direction you could play with and work on. But again, it's not like a check the box thing where every brand has to have each one of these things. But I think there's something really cool about a belief statement, because that is getting down to the soul of why you're doing what you're doing. And the mission helps you figure out, well, how do I talk about it to people? So great question. Other questions or comments?
This is Allison. Is the why statement similar to the belief statement? Like, what you said a little while ago kind of inspired me because, Johnston County has a lot of produce and agriculture. And I thought, why not say, I want to bring Johnston County fruit to your home. I want you to taste how good our fruit is. Something like that. Would that be similar to the belief statement?
It feels like that's a bit on the mission-y side, but if you go a little bit deeper, and again, this is a little bit semantics, but if you go a little bit deeper into Johnston County's got so much goodness, it's bursting, we believe that sharing Johnston County will help make every North Carolinian, healthier or happier or closer to the goodness that our state now has to offer, something like that is, and again, I'm just playing with it a little bit.
Yeah.
And again, there's no rules around it. There's no, you got to do this versus that, but you're hitting on something really cool. Johnston County is an awesome place. It's amazing. The food that's grown there is so pure. The people are so incredible. It's maybe the heart of North Carolina. I'm just making it up. that may be going too far, but there's something cool about Johnson County. What is that? And you're being able to channel that, Allison, I think is a really interesting and exciting part of what how you could talk about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, I think I'd like to just point out to the class that we as small business people, we kind of prioritize different things that have to be done, and certainly many of you are really involved in the producing of your product. It's hard, you make it yourself or you grow it yourself. So the point I'd like to make while Andy's here is this is all next level thinking. This is not about production. This is not about kind of the basic blocking and tackling that everyone has to do one way or the other. This is about positioning and communicating why you're doing this and what value you are bringing to your customers and to the marketplace. So, I think that you can do it with humor, you can do it with history, you can do it with comparisons to others that you feel good about. I mean, it's an amazing canvas that's available to you once you start thinking like this. And at the same time, realize you got to get back in that kitchen and stir that stuff.
That's exactly right. People tend to buy products or services from people they know, like, and trust. And they'll be more loyal. They'll be willing to pay more. They'll be more likely to repeat. And so this is all about trying to get to their heart. The what you do, hey, without product or service, like you got no business. But it's the why that really helps people buy, pay more, and stay loyal. So just moving along, another metric around a powerful brand that I just want to bring up is extendability. Can your brand go to more things? For example, can Deanna's strawberries and pumpkins that are bought as produce, could those go into pies? Could those go into jams? Could those go into sauces? Things like that. And just to illustrate the value, when I was looking at Sunbum 2.5 years ago for acquisition, one of the things we put huge value on was, hey, it started 12 years ago as a sunscreen, but then they got into lip care. Sunscreen, hey, it's a $6 billion market. It's a pretty big market. Lip care was an obvious extension. Hey, if you're out in the sun, skin, lips are kind of a different kind of skin, no brainer, to protect them. Small add-on, $1.6 billion market as well. What the heck? Then they thought about, well, wait a minute, babies have more delicate skin, but they're out in the sun. Nothing, motivates a parent as much as to protect their baby. Let's do that. $11 billion market, even bigger than everything combined so far. And then they extended it to hair care. It's a very small initial offering, but their brand is credible because we all know if we've spent some time at the beach, after a long day in the sun and the sand and the salt water, we all get beach hair. So who best to know how to take care of beach hair and be able to care for it in the right way than Sunbum? So that allowed their initial $6 billion market to be, almost 10 times larger as a total marketplace based on where their brand could play. And you better believe that when a big company is looking at buying a small company, they're looking at not just the business today, but how can it extend? How can it become bigger? So if you ever either want to grow your business or someday down the road want to be acquired, the ability to show that your proposition, your product or your service can extend into a bigger market than you're currently in is just a good thing. It's either a runway for your own growth or creates more value for a potential acquirer. So I'll pause there for any comments or feedback on this. If not, we'll jump ahead. Brands sometimes have limits to how far you can take them. And this is why sometimes new brands are needed. On the left is my favorite example of a brand misfire. The company, Colgate, wanted to get into frozen foods. They thought, it's expensive to start a new brand. Let's reuse one of our current brands and extend. Colgate toothpaste sales dropped by 25% during the 6 months after they introduced this product because they confused consumers. Consumers were like, oh, is there tomato paste, now for little pieces of parsley in my toothpaste? Like, what the heck is this deal? We don't understand why frozen foods and toothpaste has anything to do with each other. And they didn't. So not only did this new brand launch fail spectacularly, but it took down the golden goose of the company. And it eventually recovered, but it's just a great example that there are some places where your brand just can't go. The marinades and sauces on the right were not actual launches. It's kind of a playful, hey, what if sodas went into barbecue sauce? And I figured this would be especially apropos given how important barbecue is in North Carolina. But, some of these you might think, oh, maybe I could see A&W as a BBQ sauce, and others you're like, nah. So again, not all brands are extendable, and that's why sometimes new brands are needed. And one of the cool things is in consumer goods, there's a whole bunch of examples of new brands that have come up as new things have arisen. In the case of Impossible Meats, this new technology and this new consumer interest in plant-based meats, plant-based foods. You know what? It'd be kind of tough for Purdue Chicken to talk about, plant-based chicken, but for a new brand to talk about it, hey, they can define themselves any way they want. They read the moment, they read the consumer, they matched it with technology that now became available, and now they can go for the gusto. EOS is an interesting lip balm brand that emerged back in 2013. Some of you may remember it. It decided, the same old of, as beautiful as some of these are, Burt's Bees or Chapstick or whatever your favorite brand is, they all come in the same container. We're going to make a fashion statement out of it. We're going to make the thing stick out of your pocket or be more visible in your purse or whatever it might be, and kind of make it a fashion thing. And they match that with social media endorsements. Their sales went through the roof. They got up to 1/3 of the lip balm market by 2015. Of course, live by the sword, die by the sword. They had one of their social media people end up having a reaction on their lips, and they complained about it online. Their sales tanked. So it was kind of a bit of a bottle rocket, but it took a different brand to really make that social fashion play. It wouldn't have been authentic for Burt's Bees to do that, or Chapstick, or any of the existing brands. So great role of a new brand. Some of you may recall the viral video on the bottom left for Dollar Shave Club. You know what? They just went for the gusto and did something very different. And Gillette could not have done that. Or Schick or any of the established brands. So that was a classic play. And by the way, that brand was bought for $1 billion by Unilever. So they were very successful. Honest. This was started by Jessica Halba around 10 years ago, if I remember right. Just went public 6 months ago. Hopefully you didn't buy their stock at the IPO. It's down 40%, but they're struggling a little bit. But it was a way to bring a very clean message of safety for your child with personal care, with cleaning products, diapers, things like that. So again, as new needs arise, new brands can arise to match it. And Judy, with your natural products thing, you probably may resonate with the Honest Company and what they're trying to do. Maybe that's similar positioning or similar thinking with your own personal twists and specific proposition that you might be thinking about. So new brands, they read the moment, and they sometimes take a chance and bring out a proposition that can be effective. And those new brands have an important role because big companies don't always read the moment right. Just like that Dude Wipes person said, giants are asleep. And that gives you the opportunity. And some companies, Unilever is a great example, use periodic acquisitions as ways to stay current, stay fresh, and to stay on top of what consumers need. They bought Ben & Jerry's in 2000. You may have heard about them recently. There was some controversy in terms of Middle East peace and efforts there. But they wanted something that was more tied to a social consciousness vibe that the parent company did not have. So they bought them not just to sell more ice cream, but also to help teach them how to become more relevant and more on trend with social trends that are happening. And they continue to learn from them today. They got into some hair care brand extensions in 2010, bought Dollar Shave Club in 2016, bought seventh generation of venerable brand in the natural cleaning household care industry in 2016, got into Korean beauty with a K beauty brand in 2017. And I don't think the story is done. In fact, I would love for a student startup to be one of their next acquisitions coming up. But the point is, new brands are sometimes there to read the new opportunities that are arising in our world. Humans are very dynamic. New brands can address their needs, and there's a place for them in large companies. And it's going to be exciting to see the things you can do with the brands and the propositions that you're building. And hopefully this was a helpful discussion just to get you thinking about what you can do and how you can think about your brand and your company and your offering and your service, and how you can bring it to life and help create value and help get people emotionally engaged with what you're doing, so that you can sell it to them for a better price, have more loyal clients that want to keep coming back for your product or service, and build a great business that you'll be so proud of. So,
all right. Well, I think we've kind of come to the end of our time. If anyone's got a burning question, please go ahead. Otherwise, I'll be sure to share this deck in our sharing place and give you Andy's contact information. But I do want to point out to everybody that I know sometimes being an entrepreneur is hard and lonely, and it's easy to get discouraged. But I want you to just realize that you just had a presentation from a guy who's been doing this for a really long time, and look how excited he is, and look how optimistic he is, and look at all the opportunities that he is sharing and that he is talking about. It really is a remarkable gift, Andy, for you to share with us this perspective and your experiences. It's you continue to be the Michael Jordan of CPG, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm proud to do it. I'm excited for all of you, and just thrilled. Really enjoyed our time together today.
All right. Well, thank you. All right, everybody. That's it for today, and we'll catch up again tomorrow. Thanks, Andy.
You got it. And Amanda, I'll follow up with the service belief thing. And any other questions, please bring them on. Okay.
Thanks, Andy. Take care, everybody.